Hey, everybody, and welcome to another week of Crunching Your Growth, where we try to bring you exciting and innovative entrepreneurs for a healthy discussion about what the good, the bad, and the indifferent is about starting a business, running a business, scaling a business. And tonight, we're going to welcome Michael Dillon, and he's an entrepreneur and founder of airwaterhealing.com, a revolutionary product line. It's dedicated to improving air and water quality for better health. He was the vice president of self-wellness in Boynton Beach, Florida, but he's at the forefront of holistic health and alternative healing solutions. So we're going to explore how environmental wellness plays a crucial role in overall well-being, the science behind clean air, pure water, and his entrepreneurial journey, building a mission-driven business, which is not so easy these days. Michael shares his insights on the future of alternative health, the power of proactive wellness, and how individuals can take control of their health by optimizing their environment. So if you're curious about natural health solutions, environmental wellness, just go to his website, airwaterhealing.com, and take a look at what they're doing on their site. And we're going to talk to him a bit about what he sees and what he thinks and why he thinks that way. So Michael, welcome. Thanks for joining us, and appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So why don't you take us back sort of, your even before your entrepreneurial journey, what sort of molded you? What are some of the experiences you had that sort of got you here, and why you chose this path?
So it's twofold. I'll first talk about, the people that brought me into this world, my mom and my dad, and hate all the moms out there. We all have that in common. We were all born by our mothers.
That's for sure.
My father was an entrepreneur, one of the greatest chefs in the world, and he decided he wanted to open up restaurants, and he got into the catering business. He worked with some of the biggest guys up in New York, but he was down here in Florida running his catering company, and I got to see some of the most beautiful stuff in the world, Phil. Like, if you've ever been to Florida and you've been to the East Coast, you're driving up and down the road, you get to that little place called Palm Beach. And you know that when you're driving through Palm Beach, you're somewhere different. You're where people have listened to their mentors. They've listened to the guys over at Crunch Growth, and they've understood how to scale businesses.
Right.
And I at a very young age, I was very much knowing that I wanted to work for myself. I didn't want to have a boss. And I was just blown away with some of the properties that I saw over there in the pristine, beautiful Palm Beach, going up and down Worth Avenue. And, it made me realize how health and wealth are very much tied together, because of the fact that nobody that I've ever met will disagree with the statement that you could have 140 problems until you have a serious health problem, and then you only have one problem. It's crazy how everything else melts away instantly when you're sick and you're not well.
That is true.
That happened to my mom in 2005. And, my mom was the backbone of our house. She was there. She kept everything together. She was the universal glue, right? Mm-hmm. That kept everything together. And my mom had gotten sick, and we had known for a while that she was battling something, and she wanted to try something different. And she had ventured outside of what I'll call the medical realm, right? And she decided she wanted to check herself into a health resort. It was called Optimum Health Institute, which is OHI. They're in Puerto Rico, or the Dominican, and then they've got another location in California. Now I think they even have a location in Texas. But my mom, with one foot on a banana peel and the other foot already in the grave, said goodbye to her 4 children and escaped right before 2 major back-to-back hurricanes hit Florida. I'll never forget, we lost our landlines. We had no power, but my mom was out in California just living her best life. And I'll tell you, Phil, my mom, 6 weeks later, She came back and she was a different person. She
Wow.
was she was off of all of her medications. She had learned how to fuel the body with good organic food, raw, live, living food, things that were, eating fermented food like sauerkraut and, doing lots of raw vegetables. And she hated it for the first couple weeks because, she wasn't used to it. But then
Sure.
when her body started signaling and saying, "Hey, you're healing. You're going through the detox. You're getting the stuff out that shouldn't have been there." And mentally, spiritually, and physically, my mom completely changed. And when she
Mhm.
came back, I was like, I'm going to dedicate my life to bringing products to people's lives that can make them better, make them live longer, but more importantly, put them in control of their own health destiny.
That's a that's a great that's a great story. I Back in the early 2000s, I met a woman named Carol Alt, who was a former model back in the 80s, and she had written several books on the raw lifestyle, raw food, raw eating. She had gotten cancer, and she swears that her switch to raw food and the raw food lifestyle saved her and put her cancer into remission. And we developed a skincare line, which we launched on the shopping channels based on this raw principle, essentially not heating the ingredients, a cold emulsification, so that you preserve all the goodness of everything that you have in that product. Because when you make skincare, essentially you heat the emulsification. So by heating it, you're basically cooking everything that's good. And we created a skincare line called Raw Essentials out of that, and launched it in the United States. We launched it in Canada and abroad on the shopping channels. We did sell on Amazon, and we sold on our own website, and we were in Ulta Beauty and Sephora and all those places. So I understand the concept of what you were talking about with your mom and the whole taking it back to just the basics and raw food the way that people eat.
It's
People
it's
should eat.
it's incredible. Yeah, the way people should eat,
Yeah.
not necessarily the way that we do eat. And what with what you just said, it's beautiful because not a lot of people know about that, about the emulsification process. And when you heat something up, you do end up losing some of the nutrients and the potency of the product. I was really blown away when, so if you go, anybody that digs into my story will find out that I'm a quality junkie. Everything I do is it's of the most high quality. I will look for the best ingredients. I'll look for the best manufacturer. I want the people to have. It reminds me of Will Smith in that movie Men in Black when he goes best of the best of the best, sir. Right? And it's a joke, but that's seriously how we look for it. And when I was touring our manufacturing facility that we chose to partner with, the gentleman that was giving me the tour had in the 1990s he had a cancer clinic, and he was doing like alternative cancer treatments, and he was very, 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 very successful. And his reason for getting out of that business is you don't live very long if you're in that
Right.
business, right? For some reason. But I was asked, I asked him, I said, hey, I go, I see a lot of supplements out there and a lot of products out there. They have the GMP certification. I go, I see you have a lot of organic and raw and vegan. I go, why don't you have the GMP certification? He goes, one of their things that they had stipulated when they came out and toured our facility, they asked where our steam bath was. And I said, what's a steam bath? Not knowing. He goes, well, when we bring in like milk thistle or when we bring in our roots and, raw products, he goes, they recommend that it be steamed at like 180 degrees for 10 or 15 seconds to kill off any of the bacteria or, E. coli or whatever it could quite possibly be. And he said to them, well, we test in-house, we test from the manufacturer, and we test when it gets shipped here. He goes, we put everything in quarantine, we test it for E. coli. They go, yeah, but we still want to have it. And they had said to him, that's not 100%. We might be able to get away with it. He goes, but then we want you to take all of your products when they're done, and we want you to put it through an X-ray machine. He goes, well, that's going to have my supplements exposed to radiation. And they go, it's no more than checking your luggage at the TSA. And he goes, well, I don't want it.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we're not going to give you the sticker. And then he said, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. He goes, I don't need your GMP stamp. He goes, I'm not jeopardizing the quality of my products. And I just said, man, I go, what an incredible man, and what a great way to manufacture supplements is, you don't care about a stamp. You want to give the most raw and most potent to your consumers.
Mhm.
And I've really thought that was really special. And, that's why we decided to bring all of the global line into air, water healing.
Yeah. It's funny, when we got very close to our manufacturer, when we built Raw Essentials, we actually started with someone else, and they were good. And the whole reason that we liked the initial manufacturer was because they kept saying that, you could just eat this product. You could eat the creams, the scrubs, and everything, because it's just essentially food. The problem became when trying to manufacture it in mass to be able to meet the demand. They just couldn't do it. So we found this other manufacturer in Florida, and they were great. And we were bringing in aloe, raw aloe leaves for processing here, from Mexico and other South American countries. And so you could bring in the aloe gel by having them process it down there, and then you bring it in here, or you can just bring in the raw aloe and then you process it here, which is probably better because you're not you don't have to put you don't have to bottle it, you don't have to handle it, you don't have to do anything. You're just basically cutting the aloe and squeezing out, the juice from it. And that's what they chose to do with the aloe. We were bringing in truckloads of essentially aloe, because aloe was part of what we had. We also had this Tumanu nut oil, which was a foundation item, a foundation ingredient. And it was something that was studied. It was a product out of the Philippines and the South Pacific Islands, but it was studied extensively in Europe for its healing properties for burns and cuts and all these different skin disorders. And there was no certification for it here, but we were bringing in, this Tumanu nut oil, and those two items were essentially what we created this cold emulsification process with. There were a couple of other ingredients in there, but that allowed us those two items as a foundation allowed us to be shelf stable, because there were other raw skincare products out there, but they weren't shelf stable. They had to be refrigerated. Ours was the only raw product out there that was shelf stable at the time.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, because a lot of people don't understand that heat exposure can actually cause your product to degrade. It can cause degradation, and also can ruin the formula. And if you haven't seen, during the summers, places in the Southeast, Texas, California, Florida, Georgia, they get very, very hot.
Yeah.
Which is why, our microsomal technology is not it doesn't suffer the same, and the way we encase all of it. For anybody who ends up listening on your online and doesn't watch, but Mylon, that's the sound of Mylon glass jars. So we don't use any plastics at all. And I know, 15, 20 years ago, Phil, nobody was talking about plastics. Nobody was talking about microplastics. And, I think they shoved down our throat so much that we had to be with a bottle of water at all time. Like, you can't leave the house without that jug of water.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've had that discussion numerous times with people, because when we were growing up, when I was growing up, when we were young, yeah, It's sports, and we carried jugs of water. We didn't really have as much bottled water as we have today, and bottled water suddenly became this, um, this thing. I mean, there's so many different brands out there, and I'll tell you that we, me and my household, well, primarily my wife and I, we got caught in that trap of bottled water by bringing it into the house and all. And my children, all of them actually rejected it. They basically forced us to give it up. And I wound up putting in a reverse osmosis system into the house for water quality. And so, but you don't think about it. We didn't think about microplastics when we were doing it. We were just thinking about the convenience of grabbing a bottle of water, throwing it in the car when you're going somewhere. And
Yeah.
so, but it just shows you it doesn't matter really how much you've known about these things. Sometimes you get caught in these traps of, bottled water or plastic, you know, plastic. I mean, even when I was a kid, we still had a lot of glass out there, a lot of glass bottles, a lot of glass that you bought from, when you got a Coke or when you got something else. Today it's just it's all plastic.
Right. And they've got these studies that are now coming out with, endocrine disruptors, and we've got our teenage, daughters that are begging to go to Starbucks, and they want to go to Dunkin' Donuts, and you've got these insulated cups that have billions of microplastics a day are being consumed, and within 5 seconds of that hot liquid hitting that cup, it's releasing these forever plastics
Yeah.
that are getting into the system. So we have to start rethinking, right? One of the things that we thought was really cool, um, I think I was maybe the first person, I might be the first person in the United States to bring it to a commercial slash residential setting. And I don't want to try to tell you that I invented thoroughly this product, but I want to tell you I brought it to the market to where a man like you and a man like me could bring it into our home. Okay. And with that being said, we figured out a way to take an air purification system, a condenser unit, a UV light, a dehumidification system, and a chiller all in one product.
Hmm.
So what we did was we created a residential atmospheric water generator. So as long as you're above 35% humidity in your home, you plug our unit in and it will create up to 2.5 to 3 gallons of pure ice cold drinking water per day. You
Hmm.
never hook it up to a water line. It pulls the humidity out of the air. And then people come up to me and they go, well, you know what? You could buy a UV light, you could buy a dehumidifier, you could buy an air purification system, and you could buy a chiller unit. And I go, it's going to look like Frankenstein built it, and my wife's not going to let me put it on the countertop. I go, it's going to go out in the garage. And anytime I buy something, if I put it in the garage, it stays in the garage.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where things started to shift. Things started to change when we made it cosmetically pleasing. So the
Right.
wife would be like, hey, that can go on the countertop. But it's something that I was always worried about. What happens if there's a boil water notice? What happens if, there's a water shortage? How great would it be able to control what's inside of the water? And again, I think that, you said that you have kids, right? That's the most expensive 4-letter word in the entire world. And, you've got a couple years on me. Not much, but you got a couple years on me. So you know that fathers always think that their kids are brighter, cuter, and better than any other kid. And we'll do the best for our children. It's a father's nature. It's what we do, right? And I think that when it comes to the water, there's a lot of municipalities out there that say, hey, the water's okay. But you're like, not for my kids, not for my wife. That's why your kids said, not for my parents. You guys aren't going to keep drinking from plastic. You're going to get that RO and you're going to remove all of the dead inert material. I don't need it in my body. I can get exposed 1 or 2 days a week, when I'm traveling or on vacation or when I'm on my family vacation. But when I'm in my home, right, where you're going to spend the majority of your life. If you're lucky enough to get 8 hours of sleep at night, that means a third of your life is spent in your dwelling. It's in your home. So you wake up in the morning, you get that hot shower, you're exposing yourself to whatever's in that water because your skin is your largest organ, right? You can't get
Sure.
around, you can't get around it. So the people out there who don't have filtration systems and don't know what's in the water and what's in our tap water, you go out and get a Brita filter for $39.99. You're still putting that thing inside of a container that's made of plastic. And
Right.
they'll be like, oh, but BPA free. I go, there's 16 other 3-letter words that we don't even know about that are
Yeah.
worse than BPA. So, and I'm not trying to, shoot on those filters. It's better than nothing, right? You got
Sure.
something that's awesome. We wanted to take it a step further and say, how can we create the water that has been untouched by a government municipality? And I will never forget, I was talking to a construction worker in New York, and the guy had said to me, he goes, yeah, I've been in construction for 30 years. He goes, but if I go to Central Park, he goes, and I build a 3-stall bathroom for men and a 3-stall bathroom for women, he goes, put a metal roof on it with 2 window split units. He goes, and a place to wash your hands. He goes, I would probably quote about $500,000 to $600,000. He goes, and I could get it done in about 4 to 6 months. He goes, or you can task the government to do it. He goes, it'll cost $13 million and it'll take them 8 years to build. And I've always thought, like, so when it comes to fathers, we want to take the private construction approach, right? What can we put into our house that's above the standard that our own government says is okay?
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up in the city. I grew up in the Bronx, New York. And so we always had city water. And, we bought this house and we're on a well. And I never had a well. And to me, it was just fundamentally took a little bit of time for me to get to understanding how it worked. Because to me, it was like I'm drinking groundwater. So the first step before the reverse osmosis was to put a series of other filters in just to make me feel comfortable that the water coming out of the ground going into the house that I'm feeding to the dogs and we're showering with and all this is clean water. And forget about, fluoride and BPAs and any of that. Just for me to wrap my head around the fact that my water is coming out of the ground that is right outside with my front lawn. And then, so I got all this intricate filter system for the house, which was, fine. Then we got the reverse osmosis. But then I started to think about this. We have a well, and the rain and the snow and all that seeps into the ground and replenishes the aquifer. But then I've got a lawn, and I'm putting fertilizer on the lawn, and I'm putting bug killer on the lawn, and I'm putting all these other things on the lawn. I'm thinking, well, that can't be good because that's just seeping into the ground, which is eventually getting into the well, which is eventually coming in, but that's not going to get filtered out. So anyway, I went through this whole transformation. It took me a while to start to read the science and to understand how what I have on my property affects my well, which affects obviously the water coming in, which affects the heating and air conditioning. It affects our air quality. It affects our drinking water. It affects our shower water. So we basically had to do a whole 360 and change everything about how we live inside and outside the house.
Yeah. And what's even more important for your listeners to understand is it doesn't matter what you're doing in your lawn when studies have shown that a farm that's 3 miles down the street, the amount of chemicals that they're spraying on their crops can get into that same aquifer, that well that you dug into. Once you get deep down into the earth, you go 200-300 feet to drill that well, that water could be flowing. And people think that it's just like this one little tiny pocket. It could be the size of Lake Michigan,
Sure.
the aquifer that you hit. So if they're using, let's say they're using cotton, in between their peanut grows, and then they're using glyphosate. And I've been a huge advocate for bringing attention to what glyphosate can do to the body, and the link to neurological diseases. And you've got some of these people that are out there. I watched an interview the other day where one of the guys who I don't know if he was a formulator or a scientist from Monsanto, but the guy was sitting down in an interview, and he's like, everybody's talking so bad about this. He goes, we do the research. He goes, it's safe. He goes, you could literally drink it. And the guy goes, could you though? And the guy goes, yeah. He goes, it's safe. He goes, would you? And he goes, of course. And he goes, because we happened to get a gallon of straight glyphosate. He goes, from your same chemical factory where you guys make your Roundup. He goes, Johnny, bring him a glass.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, I'm not. And he just started eating his open mouth insert foot. And it's just like, well, so maybe it's not quite as safe as you said it was. You were pretty confident when you didn't think that it was right there for them to drink. And everything that is in the ground, when you're on a well, it will get into your water.
Sure.
I'm very glad that you've got a good filter. It's a very, very good start, because water is life. And we have now, unfortunately, we've gotten to a point where the United States has conditioned most of the population that they need to drink 8 glasses. If my grandfather was alive, I would ask him, did you drink 8 glasses of water a day growing up? And he'd go, who came up with that? My dad, I joke around. My dad says he remembers drinking from the hose.
Yeah.
Go up to my uncle's house and they'd play in the summer. And he goes, we didn't have bottled waters. He goes, it wasn't invented. It was nothing. He goes, and the fact of the matter is, he goes, we had all of the glass capabilities because they were still delivering, milk in the glass jars in the 50s and 60s. Yeah. Right. So if water was that crucial, we could have just filled it up. And I think that it's just a marketing thing. I really do believe it comes down to how many trillions of gallons of water can we sell in these plastic bottles, because I think human life would continue if Phil, you left your house at 8 o'clock and you went to work for 8 hours, as long as you weren't out in the sun and overexerting yourself. If you're at a regular 9 to 5 and you're in a marketing agency or you're in office, I don't think that you were going to die without that 20-ounce bottle of brand name water that they spend hundreds of millions of dollars having marketing wars over which one's better. Like, you see the guy like at the top of the mountain, I'm getting the water as it drips off. It's a great marketing tool, but really you don't need to do it. And in fact, drinking too much water can actually flush electrolytes out of your body.
Yeah. It's funny. I remember when I was younger, we used to go upstate into the Adirondacks in the summertime. And there was this place up in the Adirondacks is where the Hudson River starts, up in this Lake of Tears area. And it's literally a stream at that point. Anyway, there's a place where, the snow melts off the mountains up there. And then there was a spot on the side of the road where it was like I don't know what you would call it, but it was just constant water flowing. And people used to stop and fill up gallon jugs or whatever with this water that came out of there, right? And we all did it, right? And we used to drink it, and it tasted great. It was fantastic water. But then I remember seeing a Deer Park water commercial talking about making it seem like they were going to a place like this and filling up all these water bottles, which now that it was just essentially Nestle in a facility filling up water bottles, right? That's essentially what they're doing. But they always made that marketing pitch seem like we're getting it right from the source in this mountain, you know, just like you know, just like when we were, younger, going up to the Adirondacks. So, but you're right, it is all marketing.
It's 100%. And I've worked with some pretty great marketers out there, and they're worth every penny. Those guys who know how to sell, who know
Yeah.
how they know how to get you to buy. So yeah.
So talk about your business a little bit more. Customers go, people go to the website. They're getting educated as well as being exposed to products that they should buy. Correct?
Yeah. So education is a huge piece for us. We work directly with some universities for people who want to dig very deep into their health and wellness journey, and we can encourage them every step of the way. So at the bottom of the website, Air Water Healing, we have a business within a business, and that's where people can take certified natural health coach courses. They can do either from A to Z or A to B, or they can just do A.5 and get half the way to B. So people can understand their body composition. People can understand why certain supplements help the body. They can learn about, breath work and about meditation, because stress, unfortunately, I think everybody has some of it, and PTSD has become such a widely used term for the military, but everything in life can be PTSD. You can have it from childbirth. That pain could be PTSD, the experience, getting in a car accident. So there's a lot of things that people can do to kind of work on releasing some of that trauma, right? And Air Water Healing has become a source for not only making sure that we have the best manufactured products, but we want to provide case studies and information. I'll ask you this. We were talking about water a little bit ago. Have you, in the last 2-3 years, have you heard about the increase of awareness of hydrogen water?
I have not.
So hydrogen water, up until about 2-3 years ago, was mostly only done in clinical studies, clinical settings. There was a lot of people that talked about alkaline, right? Alkaline water. That's big. You go into any grocery store, they've got alkaline water, alkaline water. Well, there's a lot of people that will come out and say, they're not going to say that alkaline water is BS, because it's filtered water, right? If it goes through a good filter, the problem with changing the pH of the water is you're messing with the guy upstairs, right? So God doesn't make mistakes. If God wanted us to drink 11.5 water, that's what it would be coming down off the mountain. That's what it would be underneath Phil's aquifer. But it's not. It's closer to 6.8 to 7.2 all across the world. It's just the pH of water. It's just plus or minus 0.02. The real healing in the body has come from hydrogen. And a layperson like me 10 years ago, I would have just looked at you and said, well, there's already hydrogen in water because it's H2O, right? 2 particles of hydrogen and 1 particle of oxygen. And then the scientists would come out and say, but how much of it is available for your body to take? Right. So what hydrogen water is it's H2O plus H2 gas. And what that means is simply, it'd be kind of hard to see it, but this is my personal bottle. Okay. This is our best seller on our website. This is taking oxygen out of the water, and it's putting hydrogen gas into the water. And what it's doing is it's creating around 2.4 parts per million of molecular hydrogen. Right. And longer than every book you've ever written and every show you've ever done. You can go to hydrogenstudies.com. I'm not affiliated with them. It's a public website. They're backed by the International Hydrogen Association. They have more studies on hydrogen gas fused into water than anything you've ever even dreamed about. It'd probably take you 6 years to read all of the studies, but the studies are incredible. And you could go right on that little website. You could type in cancer. You could type in dementia. You could type in diabetes. You could type in pain, and it'll pull up every study, where it was done, the parts per million of the hydrogen gas that was done. And it is absolutely mind-boggling that this hasn't been screamed from the mountaintops about the healing properties that hydrogen infused gas into water can have. But that right there is another huge step forward for mankind because of what it allows your body to do. Like a simple thing, whatever supplement you take, I don't care if you buy from me or you buy the cheap stuff off Amazon, you drink hydrogen water and it is going to increase your body's ability to absorb it and make it bioavailable when you're drinking hydrogen water. It also does incredible for your gut, your microbiome in your gut, which is actually, like, I believe it's your first brain, because disease starts in the gut.
Yeah.
So what happens is when you start drinking hydrogen water, you start seeing some incredible benefits. And to me, I think it's the most beautiful thing in the world when you can simply press a button and turn your health and signal your body to start becoming better. And it's for me, I'm like, I was like, click a button and feel better. Okay. I was like, I'll do it. And I'll tell you, when I met the guy that created this, you want to talk about a man on a mission. This guy's wife got sick and he wanted to figure out a way to make her better. And she had started drinking some miracle water that had higher levels of hydrogen in it. And he's like, it changed her life. And he dedicated his entire company. And I'll tell you, you could not find a better guy, a more caring, loving guy than Dr. Paul Baratero, who makes our water bottle for us. That's on airwaterhealing.com. This guy got a phone call about 2 years ago, and a guy that loved his water said, hey, he goes, can you ship me one of those water bottles? And he goes, you already have one. He goes, yeah, I know. He goes, but I want to give it to Joe Rogan. He goes, I'm going on Joe Rogan. He goes, and I'm going to talk to Joe about hydrogen water. He only did like a 40-second on a 3-hour podcast. He did like a minute and a half or maybe a minute and 45-second plug about hydrogen water. And it catapulted Dr. Paul and his business into the stratosphere.
Wow.
Blew it out of the park. They sold out. Like, he almost had to sell his house to start creating the inventory, like cranking up inventory to keep up with the demand.
Wow.
And it's beautiful when a health thing gets in front of enough people.
Well, I'll tell you the one health thing that I changed in my life that had a significant impact. And it's something that I think everybody can do. And I think it's another marketing ploy that we've just been fed, and that's sugar, refined sugar. And I cut refined sugar out of my life I've done it a couple of times, but I fell off the wagon a few times because I do think that I have an addiction to sugar, and it's been born from my entire life of, eating food that has refined sugar in it. But the changes in my body were significant, unbelievable, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, my sleep. I mean, it permeated everything, and it happened very rapidly. When I gave up sugar, the first week, it was dramatic. And I work out every day, and I noticed a change in how my sweat smelled. I noticed a change in my metabolism. I noticed a change very rapidly, and I think that sugar is something that really, I know we hear about it all the time. There's always studies and articles, but people don't take it as seriously, I think. And I think if you could cut sugar out of people's diets, I think they'd be totally better off, especially the youth. My children did not have the same sort of issues with sugar that I did. They weren't as addicted to it as I was. So it doesn't matter to them, but because they don't really have a high sugar intake. But people like me that have sugar addictions, I think it's another one of those things like bottled water that it permeates everything.
And I'll say the most scary thing about it is how clever there are. And I'm going to blow your mind here, or maybe I won't. I may not, but did you know that there was over 60 different names for sugar?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So that's how they hide it. They hide it on you. So you go in and you're reading and you go, okay, well, it's brown sugar, barley malt, dextrose, maltose, rice syrup, mannose, coconut sugar, palm sugar, sucrose, high fructose corn syrup. It's just like you don't know what it is. They come up with a new name every single day. You know, it's like when everybody started talking about how bad aspartame was, right? And they're like, "Oh, we got to change the name because now it's been it's been victimized," you know. And I think that another thing that most people don't realize is the direct impact that sugar has on your heart and inflammation, you know. And guys like you and I, once you get north of 40, you start to realize that you can become very quickly part of that statistic because remember folks, in the United States, heart disease is the number one cause of death. It's
Yeah.
the leading cause of death. And you know, one of the main reasons why, you know, and again, there are so many things that you guys can do naturally inside of your homes. Yes, I developed a company and Phil brings on entrepreneurs. We're not trying to sell you. I'll give you a very, very easy thing that you can do. Phil already mentioned one of the greatest, cutting sugar out. One of the best things you can do for your home is go through every single one of your cabinets. And if you have a product that cleans that says, if swallowed, contact poison control, throw it out of your house. You do not need it. You can literally use vinegar for about 90 different things. Cut it with essential oils. You can use it for cleaning your glass. You can use it for killing mold in the bathroom. You can use it for doing laundry. You can use it for mopping the floors. It's just unbelievable how much money they spend to trick us into bringing chemicals into our homes that are making us sick.
Yeah.
Which is why, you know, I would love to say, there was a 150,000 plus. There's 150,000 clinical studies that were done on nitric oxide, but the most important one was a one that was done by a Dr. Malinsky. If you look up the Dr. Malinsky report on nitric oxide and what it can do for actually reversing issues that are going on in the heart, I can tell you that my mom was able to get off of all of her heart medications from this little bugger right here. I don't know if you've heard of these guys. It's called Cardio Miracle.
No.
It literally tastes like a black raspberry lemonade. I've been drinking it since you and I have been talking. It is the best heart health product, and it uses no sugar. Zero.
You sell that on your site?
It is. It's on our website. And I actually met John Hewlett. I had another heart health product, and I'm one of those people that stands by my word. I said, if somebody ever brings me something better than what I've got, I'll take it off the website. And I'm not like the government, right? They ban Red 40, right? And they say you've got 3 years to get it off the shelves. I love when Aldi came out and tweeted, we haven't sold it since 2012 because we knew that it had ill effects on the human body. And I'm like, so that's me. I would cut the inventory off, ship it back, or put it on a third-party eBay website. You bring me something better, I'm going to put it on the website and I'm going to sell it. I've never been able to find, there's more doctors that back Cardio Miracle than anything on the market. And it is the one thing that I consistently do for my health. I take 2 scoops a day. And it has been a game changer for energy, for pain management, for sexual libido, for blood flow. It is just incredible. It's an all-around A to Z. There's a bunch of nutrients in there, B12s, B6s. It's got vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D3, and it tastes incredible. So
that's amazing. You know, I just had a thought in my head and now I slipped it out. But along those lines, but it's, you know, it is incredible what's in our house. But I got really good when I was from being in the skincare business. I got really good at reading labels because we were making a very raw, clean product. And so we sort of learned how people label their product. to get around certain regulations or to mask certain ingredients. And so that sort of transferred over into food. And so I've gotten really good at reading labels and understanding, like what you were talking about with 60 different names of for sugar, because the same thing happens with all types of products, all types of preservatives, all types of, especially in skincare. And, you said it in the beginning that skin is the largest organ. And when you look at what happens in skincare, when you look at what happens in food, and when you look at labeling, we are so behind, I think. You mentioned Aldi saying we got rid of red dye, back in 2012. That's because Aldi is a European company. Europeans got rid of red dye a long time ago. The same thing with skincare. They have different regulations with food. And it always amazes me that we just don't, we should just adopt those regulations, because the same manufacturers that are making product for Europe are making product in the United States. Don't tell me that it's going to cost you more to transition your entire line to doing exactly what you're doing in Europe. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So
Yeah, there's something that's even easier for people out there who don't have your eyeball, right? Free app, download Bobby Approved. There's an app that you can download in the marketplace. I think it's in the iOS and also in the Google Play Store. It's an absolutely free app. You scan the barcode of any product, and it will tell you whether it's good for you or not. It'll literally tell you whether it's got seed oils, whether it's got sugar, refined sugar, whether it's got anything in there, and it's free for everybody to use, and it'll start to change the way that people shop, because I'm 100% believer that you can change manufacturing when you start voting with your dollars.
sure.
If you decide that you want to stop poisoning yourself, the companies will change, right? Companies, they will change. They'll do it. What I think I asked you, I didn't ask you earlier, but I know you said that you were from New York. Are you familiar with Steak and Shake?
Oh, yeah.
So Steak and Shake just announced on Twitter, I think it was this morning, or it was either this morning or yesterday morning. They said by the end of February, they're getting rid of seed oils, that they're putting beef tallow in all of their 480 plus locations across the United States. They're making the switch. They're going back to beef tallow, which is what America was on back in the 90s, 80s and 90s. Even McDonald's, Burger King, they were all frying in beef tallow until they came up with, let's use canola oil. Let's use all these seed oils. And I think that's kudos to a company like that, because they're listening to the people. They're listening to America, right? Seed Oil Scout, which is another app. I don't recommend them because they charge for it. I think that we've got to get to a point where things can become free when it's software, right?
Yeah.
When you've got a manufactured, the overall cost, I think that they should run their whole platform on advertisements or do affiliate work, so that way more people can download it. A lot of people can't spare, 10, 15 bucks a month for an app that tells you where to eat. But those are questions that you can ask, when you call the restaurant. Do you use seed oils? Are you frying your food in beef tallow? We can't always have that raw organic diet, everywhere we go, especially in the trade show business. When we travel all over the world, we've got to rely on using a little bit of ingenuity to know, hey, what out there can help us? What can separate, a good meal from a great meal?
Yeah. We've noticed my children, we have 5 children altogether, but several are grown and the rest are in college. And since they've gone, it's just basically my wife and I. And we've realized that when we go grocery shopping, it's basically whole foods. We're not buying anything, because we don't eat junk food. We don't eat any garbage. So we've noticed a significant change in what we're eating, not consciously. It just happened because that's sort of what we eat, right? We go to the produce department, we buy fruits, we buy, bananas, we buy sweet potatoes, things like this. And, we buy, whether if we buy chicken, or if we buy meat, or if we buy fish. So we have noticed a significant difference in how we're eating. Which is always a good thing, I think. But the one thing that we have cut down a tremendous amount on, which sort of, as an Italian, bothers me a little bit, but at the same time, it's okay, is the amount of pasta we stopped eating, because we're not eating a tremendous amount of pasta. So, but I think that as we get more conscious about some of these things that are affecting us and affecting our life and affecting our health, we have to start making decisions. I don't think that food, when I was young, when I was really, really young, I lived, an Italian boy in the Bronx. We had my aunts, my grandmother, they were all very close and around, and we lived in an Italian neighborhood. I mean, these people shopped every single day. They didn't, we didn't go to the supermarket necessarily. We didn't buy canned goods. I mean, they shopped. If we wanted pasta, my grandmother made pasta. She made ravioli. She made, lasagna. She didn't go and buy pre-made raviolis and things. And I just think that we ate differently back then. We shopped differently back then. Today, I mean, New Yorkers, I think, still do a little bit of that, because you've got the fresh vegetable grocers, you got the meat guys, things like that. But still, I think we've become way too dependent on processed food over the years. So
100%. And that is 100% what's killing us, is the ultra processed food. If I could tell anybody one thing, when you go to the grocery store, stay on the outskirts.
Yeah.
don't go through that. It's like, I laugh my butt off when I saw the guy, he was doing a stand-up comedy, and he goes, if your grocery store has a health food section, what's the rest of the store? And it made so much sense. And something else that I want to bring attention to, and it's not something that I have been an advocate for my whole life, but it's definitely something that I've been practicing more frequently, and just kind of endeavoring to see what my body, how it will react. I'd had a conversation with a guy who was probably in his mid 70s, very healthy, very fit. And he said to me, he goes, I haven't been sick. He goes, in 45 years, not a cold, not a mucus, not a tickle in my throat. And I go, what's your secret? And he said, when I was in Thailand, he goes, in the military, he goes, I had met with this health guru, and he had taught me about intermittent fasting.
Hmm.
And he goes, I eat one meal every other day. He goes, it's a good meal. He goes, it consists of lean protein, raw vegetables, bone broth. And he goes, I have myself like a Thanksgiving meal. He goes, but then I don't eat for 48 hours. So he eats one meal every other day. And it's incredible how much this 2,000 calorie diet that they've told us is absolute complete BS. Our grandfathers, our great grandfather, Phil, your great grandfather, if he didn't catch a deer, he didn't eat. Okay. When they were in Italy, if they didn't go out on the fishing boat, if they didn't come home with enough fish for everybody, you were eating leftover soup that'd been on the stove for a couple days. And I think we've gotten to a point where our country is so abundant, it's disgusting how much food we waste.
Oh yeah.
How much we throw out. And you want to know what the best part about intermittent fasting is? It's free.
Yeah.
You don't have to eat as much as they tell you to eat. Now, again, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not telling people who have medical conditions or people that are diabetic to stop eating. But if you're healthy, generally healthy, and you could spare to lose 10 to 15 pounds, I promise you, your body knows what to do with that excess weight when you stop eating.
Well, I mean, there's so much information about intermittent fasting. People, they don't have to take your word for it. People can go and read about it and determine if it's right for them. But we're out of time. I think it's been a great conversation, Michael. So any parting words, anything you want to leave people with? Obviously, airwaterhealing.com. It's a resource, not just for product, but also for learning, education, finding things out about different parts of the environment. But anything you want to leave people with?
Yeah, if anybody would like to go to airwaterhealing.com, you guys can check out. And for watching Phil and I's show today, I want to bless you guys with some free shipping and a saving. So if you guys use the coupon code MAHA, 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 and remember, that is the People's Movement. It's not Robert F. Kennedy. Robert F. Kennedy cannot make you healthy. It's your family. It's watching. It's like what Phil and I said, knowing the 61 different types of sugars. Watch what you're eating. If you want to try any of our detox, air purification, or water products, use the code MAHA, MAHA, at checkout. And remember, the great late D.D. Palmer, the founder of chiropractic, said that the power that made the body can heal the body.
That's great. That's a great ending. We appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll put that code in the description. We also have all of Michael's information in the description, as well as the website. So you'll be able to find it all, and it'll be available on all the channels, as well as YouTube and social media, etc. And then I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate the discussion. I think it was a fantastic discussion, and hopefully you've helped some people think through and get educated.
Absolutely, Phil. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah. All right. And we'll see everybody next week.